Thanks for coming to my talk on StepFunctions. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah, good. When I committed to doing this, I was talking to Leskin and I said I could do something around StepFunctions tooling. And then I sat struggling to come up with a name for it. So Leskin said, put it to ChatGPT, and this is what it came up with. So I got 6 slides, and that's it. It's too many slides today. No offense to people like Jimmy. So I'm going to build a state machine that does something fun, and I'll be using 3 toolings I built myself that we maintain at Mathem where I work. So I can do the bottom line here. My name is Lars. I work at Mathem, where I head the infrastructure team, which is a small team, and I continuously work to make us redundant. We're all in on serverless, so there's not much infra to manage. I'm an AWS community builder, together with Sebastian and Jimmy and some other people here, I think. And I'm very passionate about building tooling, and they happen to be around serverless stuff. And whenever I release a new tool or an update to one, I put it on Twitter on that handle. Yeah. I got 25 minutes to do this, and so let's jump into the agenda. First, I will talk briefly about the motivation why I do this, and why I think other people should do the same. And then I build a step function state machine that, so this is fun because I thought I don't want to do a to-do application or something boring. I want to do something that's actually interesting. So it's a made-up application that is triggered when a photo is added to an S3 bucket. And the photo portrays a person of a random facial expression eating a food item. So it could be like a terrified person eating a leek or whatever. I'm using DALL-E 2 to generate these images, so it sort of enables me to have like a big load of data to feed it. Then we'll classify this like the expression of the person towards a food item. So we will get statistics out of people who are happy about eating apples or sad about eating tomatoes. And it would update that into a DynamoDB table. So here's an example. There's a guy happy about eating popcorn, chicken nuggets. She's confused about some cream. And then, yeah, with DALL-E 2, you get all these images which get quite funny. I like the radish guy best up here. And so let's go to motivation. And that's the animation I told you about, Jimmy. That's a good one. First of all, AWS, they build mostly great services. That's why we're here. We want to use them. But there's often a gap in developer experience. They build something great over here. The developers sit over here. And then there's a lot of manual labor to get from between your code editor and the AWS console. I think the mic went. Okay, that's fine. No, it's not back. I can shout. No, it's back. Yeah. So I built this to bridge those gaps because I work a lot with step functions, event bridge, Lambda and stuff. And when I get annoyed with doing repetitive tasks, I tend to build a tool to solve it. And then I share it with the community. And I want to inspire AWS to replicate my stuff. I don't want to maintain these tools forever. I got a list of about 15 tools at the moment. I want them to bring it into their native tool chain. And for me, there's no better way to learn a new AWS service than build tooling around it, because then you get into all the nitty-gritty limits and APIs and SDKs and stuff. Some people write blog posts. I don't tend to do that. I do this better, I think. So the state machine I'm going to build, it's triggered by an image upload to a bucket. And then there's an event bridge rule triggering the state machine. This is a happy person eating a garlic or about to eat a garlic. And I think he's got a tooth resting on his tongue. It's a bit weird. So it does a parallel step of recognition, detect labels, and detect faces. Detect labels will detect the food item in the picture, and detect labels will detect the sentiment or the expression of the person. So here we have garlic happy. And then it will update a counter in the DynamoDB table, and that's it. If your business needs this functionality, come to me, you can have it. And the tools are 3 tools, as I mentioned. There is a Chrome extension, which is not out in the marketplace. You have to install it using where you can load the source code from your local machine. that enables a real-time sync between StepFunctions Workflow Studio and your local file system. If you've seen the application composer that was released just before reInvent, it's very much inspired by that. And this is something I really hope and I think that the StepFunctions team are working on to make native. Second one is a CLI tool, SFN CLI. SFN stands for StepFunctions, which lets you interact and integrate closer with your state machine. There's a number of commands, and I'll get to them later. And the last one is a VS Code extension that gives you autocomplete on the StepFunctions SDK integrations. And I'll be using SAM for this. I'm a SAM user, and I think that makes it easier. For me, it's easy to automate creation of resources and to make things faster using a declarative language. And that's it. That's the slides I have. So let's jump into the demo. For this demo, I've prepared a project. So I got the bucket and the table ready. I'm not going to touch those. The bucket's got event bridge notifications enabled. We want to trigger the state machine on event bridge. The table has a name and grocery and sentiment. I would normally call them PK, SK, but yeah. And that's it. So let's start looking at the, do I need to zoom in a bit? I can do that. Let's look at the SFN command, what it does. It does a bunch of stuff. Close this down. The command we can look at today is the init command, which will initiate a state machine into this existing project. We're going to look at sync, which establishes a real-time sync from your local file system to the cloud. It's similar to SAMsync, but it actually works. SAMsync doesn't work well with state machines yet. We're going to look at policies, which generates a set of policies based on the SDK integrations you have in your state machine. And we're going to look at the console one, which is just a shortcut to take you from VS Code or wherever you sit to the console. So let's start with adding a state machine here. For that, I use SFN init. Oops. Let's do the help prompt for that. It takes an event source option where you can pass the event source you want to trigger it on. So I want to trigger this on event bridge. And there we go. Do that in CDK. You get this state machine resource in here. And at Martem, we do a lot of data processing from S3 buckets. So this is a very common way to start the pattern to trigger it on uploads to S3. All I have to do here now is to reference my bucket I use. This is GitHub Copilot helping me out. And that's it. Now I've actually deployed this state machine, so it's there in the cloud. So let's use the SFN console command. Oops. And that will take us to a black screen. What? No, okay. Oh, it's full screen. I can do that. We got no executions, and of course the definition looks like that. And that's no good, because it's not going to do what we want it to do. So we want to edit this. And how many of you use Workflow Studio? I think it's the best thing they've built in the console so far. I'm all against ClickOps. I don't like, and we're not going to do ClickOps. We're not going to save it here. We're just going to build it here. So in StepFunctions, as it currently stands, when you want to edit something, you have an edit button. You get into the legacy way of editing, which is writing JSON. And then it's the not so new anymore Workflow Studio button. Don't know why they do it like this. It takes you here. And here you can drag and drop resources the way you want, and you can create parallel flows and stuff like that. It's really good. But the way they expect us to work with this is to build this like this, and then you do an export into JSON or YAML, whatever you want to do. There's no CDK export. And then you get like that, and you are meant to copy-paste this into your code editor, make the changes, replace all the ARNs and stuff. It's that manual labor I want to get rid of. So that takes us to the Chrome extension, which adds this button. That's not there by default. That's the Chrome extension. And at the end of this, I will share a QR code that takes you to all these tools and the other ones I maintain. So let's clear this mess I created. There we go. And we choose link local ASL definition. This uses the file system access API from Mozilla, same as Application Composer does. And you point at the state machine YAML. Now, to make this good, I need to. This is difficult I was preparing this on my ultra wide at home, then it's really easy to demo. But we want to look at the state machine, yeah? And we want to get rid of this for now, like that. And we do that. Let's remind us what we want to build. We want to build this state machine. So it's a parallel state, recognition, labels, faces, and then DynamoDB. So let's start with the parallel state. And you get this dialog for the first add that you make to it, just to allow the write. And now you see this file here updated with this parallel. This is a bit difficult. And then we want to have detect labels. And drag that in there, and you see it updates over there. Then let's do the same thing with faces. So these are all the 9,000 plus SDK integration actions. So it's the same. It follows the Node, or the JavaScript SDK pretty much. And you get that one there. And then let's do the update item as well. Right. So now I have my ASL local. I don't have to copy paste anything. If you work with SAM and you want to have access to the DynamoDB table in your SAM template, here is just hard-coded my DynamoDB table. Then you want to use something called definition substitutions, where you pass, it's like passing a variable to your state machine, and that holds a reference to the table. The extension also brings this link SAM template button, where you can link your SAM template. And that's optional if you work with SAM, of course. And what happens now, let's say, then it makes Workflow Studio aware of what's in your SAM template on your local system. So let's make this bigger for now. And a definition substitution looks like that. And then if I start typing, what? That didn't work. Did I? All right. I can't undo that. That will, however, set the definition substitution. I'll do it myself now. It will automate this. You can try it yourself later. And it will also add the definition substitution to this one. Yeah. It doesn't need the bucket. So that's all good. Now we have, we're done with Workflow Studio now, so we can close this. Note that I'm not saving, because that's the wrong way of doing it. You would never save anything you're doing here, because that's ClickOps. Right. So now on this side I have the state machine done, pretty much, apart from the input parameters for each task. And that takes us to the VS Code extension, which gives you autocomplete. So this has awareness of the Node SDK schema, which happens to be the same as StepFunctions, as long as I can tell. So go into this one. What you see now, that's GitHub Copilot. But you also get the autocomplete here. And we want to do we want to reference it dynamically to the input, which looks like that. And Copilot worked that one out for me. And with labels, when you take labels, it has a broad range of labels. It's got people, pets, cars, whatever. We want just food items. And normally I would go into the documentation and Google and search, but with this extension, you get the documentation at your fingertips, and you can step into settings, and there is this thing of where you can include and exclude categories or labels. So we want to include only food and beverage. Now I happen to know that the key is food and beverage. That's going to give us matches on food, meal, and like very broad items. So I want to exclude the broad items like food, beverage, produce is another one. Yeah. Then we go down to faces. That's easier. We just want to include that. And then the DynamoDB update table, I'm going to let GitHub Copilot guess this one for me. And that's like that. And then it's, oops, yeah. That looks almost all right. It will come, because it comes from a parallel step, you will have to access it by its index. Like that. I think that's fine. And we want to update a counter on that table. Yeah. That's that. Cool. Let's deploy this now. And while we're deploying that, I will show you a little tool I made to send images to this state machine. I'll do it. I'll create a new terminal. And I just call it gimme. Gimme 5 times expression, person, eating, food. Then this will create a random, a jealous person eating beans. Now recognition has difficulties recognizing beans. So not all of these inputs will give a good output, but it's not really why we're here. We're here to build a state machine. This will dump this into a folder called images and also upload to this bucket, which is the one we have. So I got loads here, just in case OpenAI would be down. I created some test. Let's find the jealous. Beans jealous here. Yeah. I also have a proud person eating eggplant. Now, let's jump over to the state machine. So use SFN console again. This will have failed now, intentionally, I hope. I hope it failed the way I wanted it to fail. Yeah. Good. Yeah, because we don't have the role attached to it. We haven't given it the policy to allow for recognition, detect faces, and detect labels, or the DynamoDB. So that takes us back to the SFN policies. What this does, it will look at your template file, find any state machines. If there's more than one, it will ask you which one you want to generate policies for. Now we only have one, so it would work it out. It will then parse the ASL, the state machine YAML, for SDK integrations and create the policy for us. Oops. Like that. And for recognition, I will pass it just to star, and the DynamoDB, I will pass it to the table arm. We also need to give it read access to the S3 bucket so we can pass the image to recognition. So do that. Now to deploy this again. That wasn't how I wanted it to fail. How do you for time? 5 minutes, perfect. Well, this should be fast. Now we can go back, and that's the nice thing with StepFunctions is that once you've passed valid input but get errors in the execution, you still have the input and you can rerun it from here. So let's just wait for that to go through. It'd be bad if I ended up in one of those scenarios where CloudFormation just gets stuck for an hour. It happens, but no, it didn't. So now those were fine, but you see there was no labels. It couldn't recognize the beans. And with the faces, I noticed that, oh, we didn't get any of the emotions here. And that takes me to how I wanted to fail, because to get the emotions of people's faces out from recognition, the detect faces call, you have to add the attributes, to tell it to return all attributes. We don't want to redo another deployment, so I start SFN sync, and this creates a real-time sync from the local machine. It passes your SAM config toml to work out where it should sync it to. And then it also works as a validator of your state machine. If I get a typo in here, then and save it, it will tell me that, yeah, there's an error in your ASL. So I can fix that. But that's not what we want to do. We want to add attributes all to this one. And let's go back to the autocomplete, and I pass in all here. Now, I'm going to generate new images because the beans ones were not good. So let's do 5. Cucumber, yeah. You might actually recognize that. Running. Yes, it did. Then for the last 2 minutes, I built a little tool to show the output of the DynamoDB table, and that's I'm using the same as I'm using to generate images. But let's do gimme stats. I can do that like that, and then on this other side, I'm going to generate more images. And I took the opportunity to put a QR code in for a link to all the stuff I maintain. I hope that line lets you scan it. So far we have relish, fear, cucumber, fear. If I generate, let's go back to VS Code and generate those. I can do up to 9 images here. So now we should get proud person into collard greens. So now, soon these should start updating. And of course, not all of these will go through because recognition won't recognize everything. But now you see. So it saw it as broccoli and is happy. Leafy green vegetables, happy. Calm. And these are progress bars. So if you get more than one, then it will grow. Disgusted, surprised, kale. But you see that the actual grocery items match the collard green, but recognition is not perfect, of course. So there's 2 on calm up here now. And I believe that's everything I had to show. If there's a minute left, I can take a question. Otherwise, I'll be here somewhere.